It's starting the recording right now. Give me 1 second. Go ahead.
Okay, we are recording. So Mike, if you go ahead first.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order at 1:37 PM.
Meeting called to order at 1:37 PM. Rudy Castellano,
Present.
Mike Sabini,
Here.
Mike Cousins,
Present.
Maria Gilberry,
Here.
Mike Martinez,
Here.
Travis Hurd,
He is currently excused. He's going to try and join us. He's out in the field.
thank you. There is a quorum.
Yes, we have 2 items of business on the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? I have a motion to approve by Mike Martinez, second by Mike Sweeney. All in favor? Okay, approval of the minutes for April 12, 2022. Motion for that.
I haven't read the minutes. I would make the motion that we accept them as presented.
Got a motion from Rudy, a second from Mike Martinez. All in favor? Yeah. Okay, this says that if there's public input, Shawnee has it. Is there any of that?
I did not receive any public input for this meeting.
Okay. Business items, discussion agenda, addendum number 3 to contract 355519 with GGH Wagon Mount.
The discussion item were actually addressed at May 11th. I believe we weren't able to hold our utility advisory committee meeting last month, probably due to the fires. But so the first one, addendum 3, we've been using GGI up in Wagon Mount for many years for disposal of our solid waste. We do look at alternatives, but there's no closer alternative. There's trash disposal in Rio Rancho. I think there's another one a little bit farther away. So we have used those as backups in the past. But Wagon Mount has met our needs due to proximity. They do have currently a new owner, and so the price did go up a little bit. But we're expecting the price honestly to go up with a lot of things, following COVID and inflation and some of the other recent fuel charges are impacting everything.
Mr. Chairman, Maria, what about estancia?
So Stonefield was also one of the backups, but not our primary.
This is still about
We can use it as a backup, so that would be emergency if for some reason Wagon Mount was closed. We can get a place to stop if we want to be honest.
Well, somebody else owns the Wagon Mount.
Yeah, I think it was about a year or so ago. Gentleman bought Wagon. But he's working with us just like the previous. As a matter of fact, during the fire, he opened up on one of his off days so we can continue to haul trash because we were taking trash from everybody in town to try and minimize the potential for fire at properties. And so he's been working really well with them, opening when we need him to. And now there's certain things that he can't control, like his permit, certain wind speeds he has to shut down, a certain time that he has to shut down. But anytime he can be flexible, open up a little earlier, he has to. So, questions on that? Anyone?
No, so this is already been
It's already been approved by the
council.
council, yes. Yeah, this was the last meeting. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have an advisory committee meeting last month.
I have. Anybody else?
You want to discuss that with you?
Yes, ma'am.
So we did put out a request for bids for a grading and drainage project for the solid waste facility. This started a couple of years ago with scoping, planning, designs, and discussions and modifications that we're trying to address the drainage, plus potentially an additional, transfer station building and then a maintenance shop. So there were some slight changes over the years. The project was ready to bid out, probably back in March or April was when we were able to bid it out. When we got the bids in, they were well over our budget. We did not have the funds for it. So, I did have to request to reject all bids due to lack of funding. So the plan is to go back and look at it to see if we can phase it or we can receive additional funding. But either way, we did not have the funds for it, so I cannot move forward. I could not recommend moving forward.
For some of these projects, can you get it out? And
Well, it does greatly impact the scale because we are flooding the scale. So that we spend some of the time when you're trying to keep that scale clean. So it is definitely needed. I just couldn't, the price did go up a lot more than we initially estimated, but we're finding that across the board. That a lot of our projects are 2 or 3 times as expensive as the original anticipated. The engineer's estimate, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think I had budgeted no more than $500,000 for at least being able to do a phase of it. And it came in at, looks like 1.6 and 1.8 million for the 2 contractors. So 1.6 million, 1.6, 1.7 million. Yeah, 1.7 million for Hayes and 2.1, and it was 2 phases, so 2 lots. So I tried to go the whole lot, but it was still 790,000 for lot 1. So we're gonna have to look at if there's additional ways to phase it, or if I can have some additional money this year's budget to make it available. So without having money in the budget, I couldn't ask the council to approve something that we didn't have money for.
What was the exact location of this?
So this is on the north side of town, off of the transfer station. What's that road that it's on?
No, you don't.
The River Road. Up there east of the railroad tracks on the northeast side of town, where the
Across from Sandra Crystal. That's
the old company. They concrete, didn't they? 10 years ago.
your heart.
Yeah, it's a transfer station.
This drainage for dozen.
It was general drainage for not even during extreme situations, just normal rain. It does tend to drain towards the office building and towards the scale.
So this thing
Yes. With the transfer station building being up higher. So we already have the grading and drainage plan. Now we just need you to find the money or see if we can phase it into 3 phases instead of 2. So we're looking at both options.
The projection was already taken care of also.
Correct.
Any questions on any of that?
Okay, so for monthly reports, I'm sorry, I'm going to go to the discussion item.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
so I can tell you just for monthly reports, let me, we really highlighted that the focus right now is on the floods that are gonna come as a result of the fire. So the best way I can give our monthly reports is that we're still, each one of the divisions is still doing what they have to do, whether it's customer service, wastewater, water, water distribution. But with our focus being preparation for the flood, for instance, right now, gas division and water division are out doing some removing the brush around the abutments around bridges so that we can try and protect those areas. We're looking at things that we can acquire to help protect our city structures, such as more industrial type handbags. And I'm going to sit down and totally show Travis, so we're looking at Travis, take a look at it because come with his buildings, or one of his buildings. maintenance shop is probably gonna be impacted, so we need to talk about protecting that. With the city, myself, the fire department, police department, city manager, public works, we've been talking about what can be done to protect city structures and city staff, as well as what information can we put out to the public so that they can protect themselves. So we are working on, the county already has kind of an early warning system, but it's an opt-in system, so we're gonna tag along with that and use that to let residents that live in the floodplain along the river opt into that early warning system, so it'll be a notification. We did make an agreement, we did request help from USGS to start putting in some rain gauges up in the canyon, going all the way from the very top, Western Springs, all the way down, and they've selected all the locations, and one of them is actually on your piece of property. And you've given us, given USGS authority to put the equipment on your property. It's gonna help, and all of those will be interconnected. In addition, the city's being provided, or there is gonna be a dedicated meteorologist to the city to help assess the information coming in, be able to provide some information so that we can get accurate information back out to the public. We don't want to be the boy called wolf, and we also don't want to make the statement too late because some people may not have but minutes to get out of their homes in case the floods come. And so the expectation is that these floods can be 4 times what they would normally be. So we do get rain every year. Sometimes it's pretty substantial. And you can expect the same amount of rain to result in 4 times the amount of damage or the amount of force. With the loss of the trees up in the canyon, there's going to be the potential for a lot of damage. So we are working also on gathering some information to make it available to the public. The city is planning on going door to door for the end of the week to those residents who live in the floodplain. Can't do this for everybody, but those who definitely live in the floodplain or along Cinder Road areas, we know they've flooded before, so that we can give them the FEMA flyers, let them know to listen to the radio, give them an option to opt in to the notification system. In the city, they can do, I think it's called iPods, which is where you hear about Amber Alerts and the Ready Set Go. The thing is, you have to pass it up to the federal government, and then they review it and approve it before it gets sent out. And I don't think we're approved for that yet, or the county is no longer approved for it. So the reason Ready Set Go worked was because it actually went through, I think, state boards for the national desk. I think the county is currently working on trying to reinstitute that so that we can make that recommendation, but still it gets reviewed. We don't want to waste any time, so we want to let the public know, listen to the radio, read the update, watch the weather, make your own decisions.
He talks about the USDA. For a bridge.
For this federal, I don't know if they can be our conduit. I think my understanding is the county's been working on it, so they should be pretty close to whatever I have to be.
Well, some of them.
To make sure that we can use iPods. I think what's called iPods and what's called your Apple, we use trying to building inserts. So we want to get all the information out. You know, how do you use sandbags? A lot of the homes are going to be berms. Sandbags are going to be useless. They're going to be berms. They're going to need a plan ahead to evacuate. Not going to happen. When I had to evacuate my house, I had 4 days. I could have gone back for 4 days and pulled stuff out of there. When the flood's coming, not going to have days. You're going to have minutes. People are going to have minutes. So we want to get as much of that information out to the public as we can, and the public has to be part of the solution. The evacuation center right now is designated to be the rec center, or it's planned to be the rec center. They're going through all the requirements that they have to do to make sure that the rec center meets all state and fire marshal and all those requirements. There's a lot of supplies left over from the fire. Those right there are all boxes of food supplies, and that's just a small amount. There's a bunch of emergency stuff left over, so that's already being worked on. When it comes to what we're working on, it's the river. So right now we have Army Corps, FEMA, NRCS. We have a Santa Clara there, and each one of them is doing something different to help the city. So right now we're working on the pre-catchment systems, where I got to head right back out here in a couple minutes. We're working on the pre-catchment systems in and around the river to protect the city's infrastructure, the diversion, the pipe crossing, the set basin, that kind of stuff. We'll be working on things that might help to minimize some of the ash in the water. And when it comes down to it, we're probably going to end up having to find a way to treat the water that has ash in it. So we're going to look at some pre-treatment equipment to try and pull the ash out before it gets to the treatment plant so that we don't foul anything, but that we still have the water. There's gonna be the quantity of water, now it's just the quality. So,
There will be, because there's all kinds of rumors out there that we'll run out of water and anything.
okay, so the water that we have in storage is 3 months.
Yeah.
The quantity of water coming down the river, if we get a flood, is gonna be more than we need. It's not the quantity of water, now it's gonna be the quality of water. So that's where, since we have the quantity, if that's our challenge, is treating it to drinking water standards, then let's look at that solution. So we have the water we need, we just need to make sure it's treated. At the same point, we're working on getting our wells online. We're working on maximizing Bradner, Peterson, and storage if still possible. So there was a time when even my mindset was just let it go down the river, we'll let it go down the river for a few hours, we'll take some good water, and then we'll go back to working with good water and bad water. We don't know how we're gonna deal with this right now, because it was such a huge burn. So we're looking at all options. Those are gonna tell the rainfall. So we'll know, 'cause right now we have debris flow maps, and I'm working on the water flow maps for 1 inch of rain or 1.5 inches. And at 1.5 inches of rain, all of the drainages, Sebastian Canyon and everything leading into the Guyanus are all red. So they're all high posts.
We've been able to keep the guys on that used to up there. I heard they came on for a while anyway. Mr. Saavedra and.
No, Ed's never come back.
No, he didn't come back. What about one?
Well, no, and their mindset is not the mindset that's working with our facility right now. Because they actually weren't aware of a lot of the stuff that needed to be done, so. We're working with Army Corps, we're working with Beacon and next bit, so. But right now, it's like I said, I left Army Corps up in the canyon, and I'm gonna go back and meet up with them. We're working on several potentially good projects to protect the infrastructure. The primary thing is protecting the infrastructure, and the second thing is protecting the water, working on the water quality. So that's something I want to try and get out to the community, as I have the correct information to put out to them. The Army Corps, we told the Army Corps what our issues were. We told them what we thought potential solutions were. They came back with some other solutions. While we've been walking the ground, a lot of those solutions were kind of falling back to what our original recommendations were or different locations. So this walkthrough was really good. This group is quick. They were out here Tuesday, right? I think they were out here last Wednesday or Thursday between the first visit and Sunday, and they work. Well, I don't know when they don't work. They visited maybe on Thursday. We had 60% plans by Sunday. They're doing a contractor visit today, which is Tuesday. We're hoping to have contracts signed by the end of the week, and then they're going to be noticed to proceed next week. So within a week and a half of discussing the project, we may have contracts signed and notice to proceed to contractors. Yeah. And this entity that's the mayor, the city manager, the governor, well, we've had legislators out here, everybody understands the critical nature of moving quick. And I have to say, everybody that I've been working with is moving quick. Army Corps gave us the okay to go just get in, do maintenance on the bridges. They verbally said no need for a permit, just to do it. So everybody is understanding that right now we don't have time for administrative delays or anything like that.
Do we know how much ash in the river?
We won't know. It's going to depend on the river, the rainflow, the river flow. So there are huge areas where there's no burn, and then there's huge areas where there's tremendous burn.
When we get rain up there, that's the danger,
Yes.
right?
And so what we'll do is when we get rain, we're expecting rain here soon. We'll close all the inlets to Bradner and Peterson, and we'll let the water go down the river. We'll monitor it, and if it goes up, we'll start taking it again. And we'll based on recommendations. We've been meeting with other communities that have already been through this.
I have a question. So if there's plenty coming down, is Story going to let some of that in because that's what they've been entitled to in the past? What they call the flood waters.
Right.
What are they going to? If it's a lot of ash and stuff, are they going to stop it going in the Story, or do you have any idea?
Story would like to take it all. We were discussing with Story whether or not it was good for the city And I think it's a catch-22 is we let it go downriver, but because of the burn scar, there's gonna be ash that comes from the other side of storage. So storage's gonna get ash in it no matter
By
what.
the way, from San Buena,
Right, so if we now look at it as accepting that there's gonna be ash in the water and go, okay, what's the solution to that? Instead of avoiding it, what's the solution to treating it? Then we have the quantity, we now need the quality. We now need the best quality. That's all I'm putting back there. So at that point, then it's going to be how to address it in storage, because you're gonna get a fish, if you have enough, you're gonna get a fish kill, you're gonna get, vegetation kill. You get a lot of algae. And we've actually been communicating very well with Story and the state engineer's office, as well as these other entities. We've had a lot of people step forward and do what they can to help the community.
I think, that, you know, but they will replenish the fish eventually, then once they settle in.
Eventually, it depends on what, we don't want Story to get killed.
Right.
So to the point where it's a decade before everything can get flushed out.
You know, I bring to mind the cows too.
Mhm.
We don't want them. That's no good to risk.
So,
That would be a bad idea, though, really put some water and kill some.
No, but I'm saying that I said we need to replenish the fish in the lake and keep it dry as best we can. That will become another one cost.
well, we can always do that once. Sometimes it takes years to clear out any reservoirs that ash cream. The other thing that I noticed when I've talked to Raton, Ruidoso, Santa Fe, people from Los Alamos, and there's coming more. I've talked to people from Colorado. The thing that I found is there's no continuity. Everybody's situation is different. Time frame, how they dealt with it, how long, what the water quality was, every single one of them is different. So we're gonna have to deal with our situation. But what I want the public to know is we've been on it since day one. From day one, we're gonna call in consultants who had been through the fires to say, what are some things we can do to reinforce our infrastructure? What are some things that we can do to treat the water? And it started with those two questions. And it's continued to develop to where we have, when we had an Army Corps show up last week, they literally showed up with about 30 people. And each one was a professional in certain areas. So as we were out there talking to them, it was like, we didn't have to say much because they could see it. And they were like, okay, well, we need to do this. This is what we need to do here. This is what we need to do. These are challenges. When you do this, it's going to be the result. If we do this, there's certain things like we want to put up that are called the geogrid fencing, which is basically just strung across the river or an inlet that allows large debris to get caught, and allows the water to flow through. They are avalanche equipment. They wanted to put it on some of the inlets leading into the river, and we were looking at it going, where are we going to anchor it? And so being on scene and discussing that, everybody's able to take their concepts and make them, does it actually work or does it just look good? And so that was one of the benefits of having these people out here is they can look at it and go, that's not going to work. Because of their experience. And so it's expediting a lot of things because we're not going through a bunch of undergrad engineers who don't know what they're doing. If it looks good on paper,
Yeah.
we're dealing with people who've done the same real.
That's, has the other things in the.
Or
just not there.
I haven't found a way. So I need to make sure that what I put out is 100% accurate. Right now, there's still too many variables. Once there's a commitment, there's already the commitment from the Army Corps to help us fix the issues, mainly the protecting of the infrastructure because it's an emergency protection measure. That's what they're willing to work with us on. Anything that we don't need for a year, they're like, that's not an emergency. It doesn't. If you don't need it for a year, it's not an emergency. What do you need right now? And that's what they're willing to do. So, a lot of that. As soon as we have something solid, I will absolutely put it out. But if I had put out what we discussed last Friday, it would have been wrong. Yeah, it already changed. So as soon as we have solid things, So generally, what I can say is we're working on debris catchment, protection of infrastructure, and treatment of water. And we have a plethora of professionals who are helping the city to address these issues at very little to no cost to the city. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I want to try and get back up to them here. Let me jump to project status if I can. Project status, the main projects the one streets project that I'm finishing up on is Community de las Escuelas. That project, funding wise, has to close out on June 15th. So that's why we have a contractor out there every day trying to finish that project. The challenges there was the process that we had to go through to get it reported and in the city's name. And we couldn't do anything until we legally owned it. And then once we legally owned it, they scheduled the surveyors. So they're right down to the wire on that one. The good thing is no matter what we do, we've spent all the DOT money. Right now, we're just trying to maximize what we're doing. One of the things we did was when we started the project, we had some water line and sewer line projects. In that, there were more than the funding was available, so water and sewer paid for some of the project, and then part of it came out of DOT. Where we're at right now, that the money that water and wastewater paid for out of their city budget may get reimbursed. It depends on where we're at with Camino. I don't know what portion, but we did so good with it. Actually, some that we didn't expect, and we thought water and wastewater were going to have to pay for, water and wastewater may actually do. Other projects, I know Travis is working on some. Did you have water runs?
We finished up the Lino line. Over. Water line is going to burn the street. Hopefully. You take a look. Fires the so.
So major projects wise, it's going to be the hot springs water sewer line. We're finishing up, and that one just kind of started. So the challenge there is there's some parts that are going to be delayed on. It has to be by America, and they need to make some changes to this specs. North Gonzales, we want to pave that whole road instead of just patching. And so we're currently working with the funding agency to make sure that we can pave the whole road and making sure with the contractor that we use the money that we have and we don't go beyond the funding that we receive. We want to pave the whole road there. Effluent will be done by July, I believe. The ones in Ham Park can be done by July. And I think I can't targets. Lift stations were down to lids. We just ordered. It's a supply issue on some of these projects. On the lift stations for down by detention center, DOT, and the sewer lift stations. Valencia will be the next sewer lift station. Here, and then we have a few projects that we're getting ready to put out. PRV projects, trackbacks, high-speed pumps, and SCADA. SCADA is another one of those that came in a lot higher than was budgeted or funding, and I'm talking we went from $500,000 to 1.7 million. So I don't have 1.2 million sitting around in a bank account somewhere. So for that particular purpose, so I'm going back to the engineer to go, can we scale this down? We have $500,000 from the state, and spend it, and then come back to the rest of it later. Maybe a little bit more if we need to come out of city funds, but not 1.2. So that would may end up being one that we have to reject, request rejection on, due to lack of funds, and come back with a solution. Project costs are just going up too much.
You know, you have the president that chipped in so much money for the entire, for all the residents that were, victims of fire. Now they took most of the city and thinking that either there might be some monies for that. He's working on make sure our water system is.
So there is infrastructure money. It's just about requesting it and making sure that, and we have requested. We've requested it for sewer line work. We do request infrastructure money. We don't always get approved for it. We have been asking for that money from that route. When it comes to the fire, it's specifically anything the city, and the city actually, we had a couple sports buildings in the canyon, but, didn't take anything out. The floods are what we're concerned about. Right now, fire, they're still doing okay with the fire.
That being said, could I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? On the weather pattern and projections, you're saying we're getting a special meteorologist to work with those types of issues. Have you seen anything that's lightning that you do not like it too much to? Anything that would prevent it is like a different type of year? Typical year?
I think it's, everything I'm hearing is it's gonna be a typical year, but the results are gonna be atypical.
Because of the flooding.
Because of the lack of. So what happens is we don't have the trees, the tree branches to stop the rain as it falls and attenuate the force when the raindrop falls from tens of thousands of feet. So we're gonna get a lot of that pounding and into the soil. And in addition, the soil in some areas will not absorb any of the water. So it's gonna be like a concrete. And it's just gonna run off into the ditches and the arroyos, everything that leads into the river, and eventually we'll get a flow of high velocity water and or sludge in the river. So we're preparing for everything. Without going into specifics yet until Army Corps solidifies it, we're looking at different structures being built in the river to attenuate the force of the water and attenuate the force of the debris, spend the debris and the water into the floodplains, so that it doesn't add up and compound and start taking that infrastructure. We want to spread it out and release some of that energy laterally.
The last question, Chair. In terms of the legislature, do we have anybody that, any lobbyists that are going to be working with our legislators to apply some of the issues?
So the finance committee has already been here and they have made a commitment to help the city however we need it. One of the reason why we're taking some of these routes that we're taking is Army Corps, as you can see, it's going to be maybe 2 to 3 weeks and we're going to have boots on the ground. That doesn't happen in any other format because they are self-contained, planning, design, and then they'll do the construction bidding process, and it's not like ours. Literally, the contractors are out on the ground right now looking at it, and there'll be a contract with one of them by the end of the week. That does not happen if you go through city procurement. So we're looking at the way to expedite it, and then also the way to not have this to go through the process of the city's procurement, because that also slows it down. Anything that we can't get done because of rules and requirements with Army Corps or with FEMA or with NRCS, then we'll look at doing and we'll send it back to FEMA and request FEMA reimburse us the cost of it. So we're looking at multiple routes, and nothing is off the table. Everyone's a potential solution to the problem, including the city asking for money and the city paying for it, and then the city going back later and trying to recover some of its costs. But I'm looking at what's the quickest way to do the right project. We've had a lot of people say, just do something now. But if you just do something now, you're probably going to do the wrong thing. So we need to do the right thing as soon as possible.
It's the old saying, next month.
And the thing that's benefiting us is we have all these advisors. I mean, when I'm out there talking to Army Corps, these guys have been through this before. So we're not talking with people who are speculating. So we're talking with people who have on-the-ground experience.
They're not talking to just anybody.
Absolutely. So that's all I have. Unless somebody has a particular project they want to ask about.
I'm just asking, adjacent to my house is a fence, and a neighbor who lived there got cancer, moved to New Hampshire. Left all kinds of branches that had dried and piled up against my fence. I called out the city and asked for code enforcement. They never wanted. And I finally called Shawnee, and she was able to get it well. And then nothing's been done, so I'll just ask him whether they pushing somehow review that debris. It's something of the Irish.
Where is this at?
It's a fence. The neighbor's fence. He's not back. He's got cancer. He was taken from New Hampshire, so the house is kind of abandoned.
So if you could do this, leave the contact information with Shawnee. We'll put it in form of an email. I'll get it over to the city manager's office. The thing that we have to work with, and there's always a way, but the thing that we have to work with is when things are on private property, but careful about doing anything on private properties so that we don't violate any anti-donation issues. But there is a way through it, and that usually means we give them a warning, we let them know if they don't do it, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna bill them. So when we pass that on to the right people, to make sure that we're following the right process, so he doesn't come back and accuse us of doing anything on his property, or we don't violate any kind of.
Yeah, because it's costing a bunch of business, because no one reminds me of it.
And we don't want you to have any grief.
That's the thing about that.
So do me a favor, put it in writing with Tony, and we'll get it over this evening.
And in the form of an email or just like?
An email would be best, because that way we can track it if you want. Any other questions?
Okay, I don't have any questions, but do we have any announcements or anything?
The only announcement I have is please pay attention to the weather. If you know any family or friends that live along the river that were impacted in 2013, please let them know that it's likely to happen again or worse. And it would be prudent for them to start figuring out themselves how they protect their properties and how to protect themselves. We're gonna do everything we can, but we can't make people leave their houses. We can't make people leave their homes.
Just, no, the comments and the.
County's already started making sandbags, and we're trying to bring in Rubicon. We're trying to bring in Team Rubicon and National Guard and the Guardians and Kids, and they're bringing in a bunch of different entities to be making sandbags. And I know they just acquired another process, acquired another pallet. Their goal is to make 100,000 or more sandbags. Sandbags are not going to help everybody. A lot of the houses need to burn them up, and so I think people need to analyze their own property and go, sandbag. What is it, 6 inches? 6 inches, and so we might have 3 or 4 feet of play. And so when we give away sandbags, we usually give away 10 or 20, and that's going to protect your door, and that's about it. So if your house isn't raised up enough, the property owners are probably going to start throwing it up or small homes. So I need to talk to you because we're going to need to get something around the Valencia lift station and around your building, and I have a couple of potential products that we won't have in the next week, but we might be able to have in the next few months that might be a long-term solution for the problems. Your city peoples, or personal properties.
On this form, is there anywhere you put their, annual?
It should be in there already. Mike, if you, yeah, I gotta take off if you guys, if there's anything else I can answer.
Any member comments, guys?
You'll have staff on board for the Fiestas, Maria?
I don't know, I know the Fiestas is still in planning, I don't think we're gonna do the fireworks, but they've been working on it, we're planning on having Fiestas. There's nothing planning on, we're planning on.
Okay,
Okay, the next regular meeting is scheduled for July the 12th, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. I know Maria is busy, I would like take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn.
Okay, we'll adjourn at 2:15 p.m.
They were like, they were movie last week.
Yeah, cheers.